Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to wrap up this week with not only just some new music, but also a new artist. We're looking at The Wring, who only have 100 subscribers on YouTube and an undisclosed amount of Spotify listens, probably because that number's fairly low as well. So these guys are super fresh. If you enjoy this, please go over to their channel, check them out. I think this is their only single too, although I could be wrong on that. I believe they are progressive metal, or maybe a heavier progressive rock. I don't know. Let's dive in, check out the song The Sword, and see what The Wring is bringing to the table today. Ooh, so we have an odd number of beats in the phrase, but I didn't catch it till the very end. No. Really impressive how much they're throwing me off here. I like the atmosphere alongside too. It isn't just rhythmic. Bass carrying the lead there for a bit. I love that. Lots of energy on this guitar line. Oh, interesting harmony too. Yeah. Yeah, really nice body on that higher pitch. Interesting growls underneath the layering there. I think this is the post-chorus, but it has so much in similar with the verse. Ooh. Yeah. nice tom fill there on the drums. The cymbal work here is really interesting too. Lots of offbeat accents on small cymbals. It's a very unique voice, I think, within the prog drummer realm. Nice. The pull up into the rundown, really nice decision. We hadn't heard anything like that, so it's very refreshing. Yeah, go for the rise up for the resolution. It's an interesting ending given the spooky harmony they're going for. Pretty much the entire song is very rule of cool, aggressive metal sound with a little bit of harmonic interest, sometimes including a Phrygian ending to an otherwise pentatonic scale, giving the ends of ideas just a little bit of extra spice before pulling it back into the very traditional metal sound. And to go from that into sort of a spooky rendition on that core guitar riff, removing all of the pedal tones and keeping just the melody up top. Like I said, it's an interesting decision. It kind of comes out of nowhere, but it also kind of fits. And I think it's one of those things that I just need to listen to more in order to kind of see how it fits in and get accustomed to that transition there at the end. But my initial reaction to it was definitely a little bit of confusion on that harmonic shift. Yeah, this is solid though. Honestly, it really is. The vocalist, I think, has a strong set of vocals. Maybe could use a little bit of some extra. I think production is well done all across the board. I don't know if it would help the. I don't know. There's something about the vocals that feel a bit flat. And honestly, I don't think it might not even be the vocals. Okay, so I'm going to change pace here. I was going to talk about how everyone is doing their jobs really well and that there's a strong showcase of skill here. But I think I'm going to hold that off for a second and talk about the big negative thing. And then we're going to wrap it up with a bunch of positives, and hopefully that will make this criticism a bit softer. The song it's flat. It really is. As I mentioned, what I thought was the post chorus where he says, the sword will determine it all, or the sword will rule over all, or something like that, and he repeats it twice. That moving guitar and bass riff and the driving drums, it's very, very close to the verse, and we already hear so much of the verse that to hear something that I can't even tell if it's different just makes that one lick really tiresome after I've heard it so long. And the verses are pretty lengthy. Well, at least the first verse is rather lengthy. The second one I think was cut down by 25%. It's 3/4 of the length of the first verse. But we hear that riff a lot. And then we end up hearing it again at the end of the song. It's a good riff. It just can't carry that much of a track, I think. And so my big criticism with this is contrast, right? There's some heavy metal influence in here too, and maybe there's a more appropriate band that could probably draw parallels to, but I hear a lot of Dream Theater in here. The vocals can kind of move away from Dream Theater at time, but musically that's what I hear as maybe a primary influence. I don't know, but I would highly suggest listening to some Dream Theater and probably, I don't know, I'm sure there's going to be some people in the comments who could give some other directions to go in so you don't just have one point of, creative inspiration. But there's a lot of progressive bands that use contrast really well in order to create highs and lows in their music. And maybe this song is supposed to be entirely aggressive and driving the entire time, and you don't really want peaks and valleys. Again, maybe just craft two or three or four riffs. Maybe put some variations on this riff where maybe you start the first bar the same, but the back three bars are different. Just something to change up the song a little bit in some ways, in order to craft dynamic writing. I still think a low point in here would have been really nice to punch back up. It would have made the ending feel a bit more impactful. But, if that's not what you're going for, there's other ways to put contrast in the track too. And I think it sorely needs it. And like I said, that's really my only criticism. I mean, I was really happy that instead of holding a note out and going up, you held the note out, dipped up before dropping it down and doing a little run. That was enough change for me to be happy because I just wasn't getting any contrast anywhere in the track, except for the halftime feel in the chorus, which, I mean, it's a nice change, but it just isn't enough, especially given how little of the track we spend in the chorus versus how much we spend with the riff. Even the bridge ends up feeling very similar to that verse riff. Um, but yeah, like I said, that's really my only criticism because everything else about this is great. We listened to the drums right off the bat. We had some really cool drum work in there, putting in some cool offbeat accents, creating some interesting syncopations. At one point, it even made me think we were in a different time signature. Maybe we were, and you just tricked me. You gave me like like a 15/4, or like a 15 beat phrase, and then we shifted to 16s only. I don't know what happened, but at the beginning of the song, I was like, wait, no, we missed a beat somewhere. And then I started counting, and we were consistently in 4/4. So I don't know where I got mixed up, but you tripped me up, and that's really good. You did it in a way that's still groovy and connective, and I think that's a real strength of this group is to create these flashy ideas in ways that are still, I think, palatable to a general audience. I don't think there's anything in here that would really push away your average metal or hard rock listener, despite the fact that there's some really cool intricacies going on. The riffs themselves are a bit technical. They require some skill to pull off. I certainly can't play what y'all played. And I love that the bass got to lead some sections. In fact, the bass played lead melody almost all the time. I don't think there was a single moment where the bass just played like pedal tones or walking bass lines or arpeggiations or anything like that. The bass was always riffing alongside the guitar. I love that. That's one of the cornerstones, I think, of good progressive rock music, or progressive metal. Wherever my window for metal has been skewed as this audience I've cultivated has thrown me further and further into the deep end of extreme metals. This doesn't feel heavy to me anymore, and I think that's a problem. Ah, jeez. Um, but yeah, like, I love that the bass is consistently doing cool things. And sometimes it's even given lead. Coming into that first verse, the bass isolated against the drums was fantastic. Absolutely love that. The guitar work in here is consistently good. It's tight, it's technical, it's precise, everything you want for a progressive group. The drummer, again, has some really cool things going on rhythmically in there, and as I mentioned during the bridge, a really unique voice too. There's a lot of use of the bells of the cymbals. We have some smaller cymbals on the kit. And a heavy emphasis on the offbeats there, which was a very inspired decision to go. I thought it spruced up and brightened up the bridge in a way that I don't think every other progressive drummer could have done. It was very cool to hear that, and not something that I typically hear within the genre or even this sound. The vocalist has a lot of control over their vocals as well. Although now that I've talked about this flat thing, I think the vocalist kind of leans in. Ah, here it is. Okay, so remember I talked about it earlier. Something about the vocals were a little off to me. I think it's the staticness of them. Unlike the guitars, which just have a really rule of cool thing, plus the bouncing between the main melody and the pedal tones, The vocals are sort of all in the same range all the time, don't really drift away from that. We had that one belt, we had that one run, but even that was within that same range of pitches. And so the vocals kind of end up feeling a bit monotonous despite the rhythmic changes, despite the melodic flow changes. The pitches, the sounds of them never really alter that much. It might be worthwhile to maybe drop the vocals down an octave in second verse leading up. Maybe the first half is done a third down or a fifth down or something, just to give us a different sound. Maybe bring up those growls that I heard in the song and make them the core focus rather than a supporting line. Anything just to change it up a little bit. If you can push your vocals a little bit more, maybe even the final verse through the song, you bump it up a third, and you really carry through this section with a new energy that the rest of the track wouldn't have because it's lower in pitch. I don't know. There's a lot of ways to add contrast to lead melodies. There's a lot of ways to add contrast to vocals too, given you're in complete control. Even just a little bit of grit or rasp, natural compression, are ways to give clean vocals a little bit of distinction between sections. There's just, you can do it compositionally, you can do it production wise. You have this whole AI robot theme going on visually. Bring in some melodyne, bring in some auto tune, put some digitization on your vocals, remove some of that natural imperfection, and I don't know, maybe just for a quarter of a verse, maybe just for a specific line, get that robotic sound, that really flat, pitch perfect tone. Maybe that's not the best idea, but maybe hearing that might get some creative juices going. I don't know that that's necessarily the direction you'd want to go with this, but what I'm saying is just play around with stuff. Find some ways to change it up, and see if you can bring some contrast out in the instrument that is in the spotlight a majority of the song. So, but here's the thing though, aside from any creative decisions like that, I think that the skills in the singing are fantastic. Great breath control, good body, good air pressure. Everything is clearly enunciated. The good vibrato. Like the core skills on display are fantastic. And that belt sounded fantastic. I love that. That was a good little note there. It really is just about finding who you are as a vocalist. I think the vocalist and the bassist were the same person. Did I see that correctly? Yeah. Yep. So we have the guitarist, the bassist and vocalist, and the drummer. You've certainly found a voice as a bassist. And you're a good vocalist, but you haven't found your voice as a vocalist, at least based off of this one song. And again, I'm missing the context of the album too. The album comes out September next month. Yeah, so it's possible that this song does find contrast within the album. Maybe it comes right before a ballad, in which case that's a sharp contrast. You don't really want any dips in this song because we're going to have a massive dip afterward. So, there is context I'm missing. I'm talking about this song in a vacuum, and it won't exist like that as of next month. But again, this is my criticism after listening to it. Really solid foundation. I think this band has the ability to go far. And I'm curious to see what else they do, given how strong of a swing right out the gate with this. It's a pretty good swing. I'd love to see them grow, and specifically even, I mean, see how the album goes. But if the album is similar to this, how they're going to mature as they develop their craft and start working on their second and third album and see where they go from there. I mean, as usual, bands can come out the gate really strong, but it's always interesting, I think, to see where they go. Between the Buried and Me started out really strong too, but it wasn't until I think it was some of their later albums where I really felt they developed into a unique band, not just a great one, but one that's going to define what other bands do. And so it's always about that growth and maturity, especially with new bands. So that's where I sit with this. Those are my thoughts on The Wring's The Sword. Oh, I didn't do lyrics. Let me see if I can find some lyrics real quick, and then we'll wrap this one up. Well, I'm glad I took that pause. I got a couple of things to clear up. I didn't find lyrics. Yeah. But I did find some other stuff. I found their website, and I was hoping the lyrics might have been there, and they're not. But I did find out that they had a self-titled album back in 2017, and that it's a solo project. There have been three albums so far. This one will be 4. And every album has had a different set of musicians on them. Some names that stood out to me were Bryan Beller on bass for album number 2 and Marco Miniman on drums for album number 3. Alright, definitely a group to keep an eye on then, I think. But not a brand new band as I expected, which kind of makes me sad. They're working on putting out their 4th album and barely have any listeners, and they're solid. So I know I'm not a really big channel, but I hope I can help with a little bit on the exposure side and help them get the audience that they're looking for, because they're putting in the work. And I always think it's a shame when fantastic bands kind of get lost in the void of all the music that comes out. You know, it's a double-edged sword. Having everybody be able to make music. Not one I'd like to close back up. I like the Pandora's box open that way. I think music should be for everyone. But it certainly has made a plethora of music out there that listeners have to dig through to find the gems, which they already had to originally, but now it's even that much harder. So yeah, no lyrical dive on this one, but some interesting tidbits of information here. Those are my thoughts. The Wring's The Sword. Let me know what you thought of this track. Anything stand out to you? Is there anything you'd like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Maybe just have a totally different opinion on this track. Let me know down in the comment section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. It takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all 3 of those. Be sure you head over to their pages, like, subscribe, follow, ring bells, hearts, whatever. I will have links for their streaming platforms and social media in the description, as I always do with up-and-coming bands. Even though they've been around a while, they could still use some help. So, yeah. Tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have our album review. It's going to be a long one. I'm estimating probably 4.5 hours for this one. And then Sunday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have our live stream. Come over, hang out, listen to some good music, chit chat. It's just a good time, real relaxed. Otherwise, Monday we'll kick it off with next week's theme, which I don't remember what it is, but as always, it's going to be interesting. So, until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.